All right, welcome back. Observe this with Draven and myself, Double G. We're gonna pocket a little bit of time talking 1984, the late summer of '84, through the lens of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and then we're gonna focus the back half of the show on these two Saturday shows that we got to watch. One of them was the AEW pay-per-view All Out, and the other one was WWE's first ESPN show, Wrestlepalooza. Draven, what is going on? When are the Dodgers going to clinch the West here?
Magic numbers 3. So after we take care of the D-backs, who are all of a sudden in contention, so good for them. I am drinking my iced coffee out of this cup here that has all the Dodgers from last year's championship team. There you see.
I have some cold brew, but there's no Giants insignia on this Kirkland brand cold brew.
We'll have another show talking about that, but I'm excited because we eliminated the Giants, and that's always fun. And we did it. The sweep took them out of the. Well, it wasn't a sweep; it was a 3 out of 4. But it's always fun to have that experience. So now take care of the D-backs, clinch.
Who do you guys close with?
With the Mariners in this weird ass schedule.
Oh, weird! That's so weird. And they're all of a sudden in first place, and those games are going to be meaningful to them because they're trying to keep the Astros out of first place there.
Yeah, but they got a 3-game lead now, so they're pretty comfortable.
Yeah,
their magic numbers probably are the same as ours because we're 3 games up on the Padres, and we got the tiebreakers, so really 4 games. It's I'm excited, but let's talk some wrestling. Let's talk some Black Saturday.
Yes. There's going to be some Black Saturday talk. So before we get into it, I just want to shout out the people watching on the live stream. Welcome. You can chime in. You can give some questions or thoughts to anything that we're talking about. And obviously to our audio feed, which is going to be, it won't be in the audio feed until the following week. But still, this stuff is kind of timeless. Let's kick it off and let's talk a little bit about the process of one Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer, I think we talked about this last time. He was having trouble with there being so much news that his monthly cadence was making his newsletters so big, and thus postage was becoming more expensive. And he had, his sort of what he thought a newsletter should be, 18 pages or whatever. He was going over that every single time. So he has dedicated himself to every 3 weeks as of this time in the late summer of 1984. And you know what I realized about the newsletter in this time? Because there's so much news, obviously WWE is just running all over the U.S., or at least trying in some cases, because we're going to bring up their head-to-head against in Memphis. And in other cases, it is causing the local promoters to actually work harder, and in some cases, work together to get bigger stars and to sort of prime some big shows when WWE comes into their market. So his, like, half of the second newsletter that I looked at this week, there's 2 that I used. Half of it is just like results. It's just like a list of results in every single territory. So what that tells me also is that the fandom, that hardcore insider fandom, is probably really hot right now because he's getting all of these results and to put in the newsletter. So I have to imagine like the popularity of wrestling in this time frame is pretty big, especially for those insiders, just because it seems like he's just got so much. He has so much news and results from like every little single territory in the U.S. in these issues.
I mean, it was another time, right? It was the hand to mouth era, and everybody was making money. Was everybody making millions? No, but everybody was making a comfortable living, right? And so and the cool thing about that time is that wrestlers could stay home. They could sleep in their own beds because they lived in the territory. Yeah. I think people that don't have an awareness of what the territory system was, they think, oh wow, it used to be a bunch of mini WWEs. No, that wasn't the case at all. It was a very different business, and there's a lot to like break down if we're able to do that. but it was very healthy at this time, in the sense where everybody was making a nice living, nice little, you weren't rich, but you were also you were doing what you love too, which is also important. So yeah, and then this would be kind of like the last year where that was possible, because after 84, it was like a domino, right? They all started falling one by one. And
Yeah.
then,
So,
well, I was gonna
no,
say,
go ahead.
and then the economics changed, because then it was like, okay, you had wrestlers that were making six figures a year, high six figures, but there
Yep.
were less of them. So
Yeah.
that was a trade-off.
Yes. All right, so let's kick it off with a conversation. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna hit like a lot of news. There's no real like overarching story. The story is WWE's trying to run all of these different places, and these territories are kind of fighting back as best as they can. So WWF has now taken over both TBS shows on Saturday and Sunday, and there was this thought that Ann Gunkel, of all people, was going to somewhat help them, I guess, help Ole in some way, maybe help him get television because she was friends with Ted Turner. And in turn, it's actually not why she was there, because she was at one of the last TVs before Vince took over.
Right.
The reason why she was there, from what it looks like, is she bought all of Ole's stock in the company, because Vince had the majority because of the Briscoes, and Ole still had his piece, but he lost all the voting shares. And so Ann bought Ole's shares, and Dave is like, well, there goes that idea that she's there to help them
Yep.
get TV. So here's a name that I know that you're going to love. President Jack Tunney, or future WWE President Jack Tunney. So Jack Tunney has the Toronto office, and Dave wrote that Crockett figured that he would just end up with McMahon, so they tried to bleed him by not sending NWA talent to Toronto, because that's where he got a lot of the talent. And they thought, okay, well, maybe this will force him out of business, but Vince just saved him, and Vince just partnered with him. So now Toronto is a WWF.
I think it was
office.
Frank Tunney. Jack was kind of like a partner, but it was Frank Tunney, I think, if I remember correctly.
Dave specifically wrote Jack, but
okay,
maybe
hey, I'm not gonna go
there
against
is.
Dave.
Well, because we always wondered where Jack came from, right? When we were kids.
Well,
Like,
Jack worked in the office with his brother, but his brother was the one that ran the Toronto Maple Leaf office. But maybe towards the very, very end,
yeah,
maybe Jack got control, and that's why it turned over to Jack. So that's probably what happened.
So
him and a guy known as Billy Red Lions, which everybody has seen on TV if you see it back in the day. He's another guy that was part of that Tunney clan.
And who does WWF bring in at this point? Well, the people I'm about to mention, three of these guys are in for an absolute cup of coffee. They are known as the Fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy, and Buddy Roberts. I remember when I read, it must have been in a wrestling magazine in maybe the late 80s that the Freebirds were actually in. And you know how sometimes you're like, oh, the Holy Grail, I wish I could see any sort of footage with them. Well, there was two of them. One of them was the Freebirds. I wanted to see what they looked like on WWF TV. And the other one was Missy Hyatt on WWF TV, because she only lasted for a cup of coffee as well. But is there any footage of the Freebirds being on WWF TV?
Yeah, the first time that I found that out, it was late. I was already in my 20s. What happened is that, remember when Mean Gene had that, what was it, the WWE Classics, that television show? They dug up that footage, and it was one taping in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where the Freebirds were there. And it was, just imagine the Freebirds being stripped all the way down and being taken. Everything was taken from them. Their music, their charisma, everything. They were just three generic guys, including Terry Batman Gordy, who was anything but generic. So it was your typical, even back then in 84, it was your typical, if it didn't happen here, it doesn't count,
Right.
And you had to essentially start from scratch, what tends to happen in WWE. So yeah, and they only lasted one taping, which equal to 3 weeks because they would tape 3 weeks at a time. So there, yeah. So I saw that footage in WWE Classics. I think that was the name of the show.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say maybe 2001, 2002, and I was in awe. I was like, "What the? I didn't even know, like, at all." You know, I always thought it was like Dallas, and then they went over to after Dallas. I think they went over to work for Watts, and then they went to WCW. So that's what I thought. And then they were in Georgia. That's where they went because they Vince bought Georgia. Yeah, so I didn't know that. And then the Missy Hyatt one, I think it's out there somewhere on YouTube, but that's not even an official one because she was never actually a character. I think she auditioned and they had Missy's Manor, right?
Yeah.
Missy's Manor, but they never picked up the show. And so all you have is like footage of her the audition, and that was it.
I think she said, like, she admitted to like not being really good and kind of understanding as to why it didn't work. But she told, I can't remember if she told this because Dave and I have interviewed her once or twice. And I want to say she told this on air, but I know this story got out. So it may have been she said it somewhere else first. But she said that she was in her hotel and Vince came to the door and she kind of had to shoo him away because it looked like he wanted to hang out for a little while.
Oh, well, that's
So
not
I
surprising.
mean, yeah, it's not surprising at all. But you know, she did mention that when I think it's probably when Dave and I talked to her one of the times. So I thought that was kind of interesting. By the way, did we mention this on the air? But did you see the story that she and Jim Ross were together for a little while?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean
Oh,
that's
good.
cool, right? I mean it's two older people that
Oh
are in the.
yeah, I thought it was great.
I mean I think that there's I've always told people as you get older, having a partner becomes less and less about love and more about other things, and so that's probably what they were kind of like messing with, just that companionship.
It was one of those stories that I had heard because of my connection with Big Dave, and Dave's friends with both of them, and it was kind of one of those things like, oh, you know what's kind of cool, and he told me the story, and that's also something that you keep on the hush because it's just personal life stuff, and there's no news coming out of it, right? But it was just something I kind of thought about, and then I think she said it in an interview or something, so then it just became like, okay, like we could talk about this, and it's unfortunate, it didn't last that long, but still it was pretty cool because they're old school, man. Like, you talk about anything, what would it be, post 87 WCW, and they're kind of, they're both there until Jim leaves. I think Missy's kind of in and out sometimes depending on how they wanted to use her, but they're longtime coworkers, so it's kind of a cool story. I wanted to shout out Awesome Sauce and Charlie Bonilla, who are checking in on the live stream. I imagine.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Awesome Sauce, were those Missy segments like did they air or were they like just did you find them on YouTube or because I could have sworn it was just the audition, but I think that you said there was quite a few of them.
Draven is referring to Awesome Sauce's comment that those Missy segments were rough. Awesome Sauce said they saw the Savage one. So that's what we are referring to. All right, we'll see what Awesome Sauce says, and we'll get an answer. Okay, so let's go back to two other people who are coming into the WWE expansion here, which is Ken Patera, who is recently like just been in trouble for tearing up like a hotel room and throwing a thing through McDonald's and fighting police officers and everything. So they're bringing Ken in, and also Kamala, who I feel like Kamala would just come in like from time to time, throughout the late until about the mid to late 80s.
I'm such a nerd that I know exactly how many times.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, it was 84, 86, and then he left in 87, and then he came back in 92, 3 times.
Yeah.
It's interesting how the legend of Kamala is bigger than Kamala actually was, but that's because he headlined with Hogan every time. Well, except for when he came in 92. He headlined with Hogan because when he came in 92, he came in to headline with The Undertaker.
Undertaker.
And then he had this very like botched baby face turn. But in '84 and '86, he came in to feud with Hogan, like right to the top. Like it wasn't even like they didn't even do like the mid-level babyface squashes. And so people always remember Kamala, you know, or Kimala as I call him, because that's his real name. And yeah, so
The
go ahead.
Coliseum home video. In the early ones, when they did the little intro, there'd be that video of Andre body slamming Kamala, and it was old Andre. It wasn't like the short hair Andre. It
It
was
was a
like
Chia Pet Andre.
yeah, yeah. And so I would always see. I was like, oh man, that's Kamala. Like, I wonder what every time when you watch something and you're very new to it, and then every time you learn something, you kind of go back and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that was that. So that's one of those things for me, is realizing Kamala was there as many times as he was, because he was a great Hogan opponent in '86. They did lots of business together.
Right, and then of course Jerry Lawler created that character. Have you ever seen his vignette that introduces him? That's legitimately scary, bro. Like even today,
Yeah.
like I get like the voice is like Kamala. He's supple, and it's like, and they show him like just kind of like the camera pans up, and he's right. It looks scary. That's the legit. I can only imagine like in '82 when you're seeing that for the first time, you know. But yeah, so it was named he was named after Dr. Kimala, who was Jerry's personal physician or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then Ken Patera. So I was trying to remember the timeline, because the Ken Patera that I remember in WWF is he comes back after being in jail, and the story for him coming back is that Bobby the Brain kind of left him and did not contact him, and not a good friend, and now I'm coming back for revenge on Bobby the Brain Heenan for being a bad person. They did all these skits about him being in jail, and he's like, he's got to talk about his comeback and stuff. That's what I remember. I don't really remember a lot of the Ken Patera in 1984.
Neither do I, actually. He was there, but
I wonder if he just is there until there's. I'm sure there's some sort of lawsuit or something that happens, and then because he gets sent to jail at some point. I just don't remember how long he was there.
Yeah, and because the whole McDonald's thing is what puts him in jail. So him and Masa Saito, they were gone for a while, and like you said, he comes back in late '86, and he has that he's a jobber at that point. He's got that baby face run going into.
He's on the Hogan team for the very first Survivor Series, I think.
Yeah, but he has the messed up, and he's still working through that, which is insane seeing that. But that was how they used to do it back in the day. But yeah, I just remember him as a kid. He was always a jobber to me, because that's the Ken Patera that I grew up with.
So it sounds like sometime in late '85 he gets sentenced to 2 years in prison. So I guess he's in WWF for a little bit in this time frame before he's got to go to jail in June of '85.
Who was in longer, Ken Patera, or what was the name of that guy, man? The Colossus of Bugger Road. What was his name? Nathan Jones.
Oh yeah, Nathan Jones had the one WrestleMania match. Remember?
Well, they didn't trust him. Remember they.
Oh yeah, he was scheduled for the WrestleMania match.
Taker had to go out there and do a handicap match with Albert and the Big Show, because he was so bad they didn't trust him.
Can you imagine, considering all of the bad people we would see at that time for a little while, and he
Vladimir Kozlov and those guys, and it's like they didn't even trust Nathan Jones to like do one spot.
Have I told you my Ken Patera story from the Cauliflower Alley Club?
No, but I got another. But you go first.
All right, I want to say this has been said otherwise, so I don't think I'm breaking any news. But we were. I'm gonna guess this was like 8 years ago, something like that, maybe even longer. But because I've only been to 2 Cauliflower Alley clubs, I think. And all of a sudden, we hear that Patera was being a little unruly, and that he urinated inside the hotel, like on one of the plants or something. Like I'm assuming I'm assuming he was inebriated. Like I don't think he did that as some sort of like
Let's hope not.
Taking it out on somebody. But I just was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Where these old school wrestlers are urinating in plants in the hotel. That's what was said. I didn't physically see it, so I couldn't verify that story. But that was the story going around that weekend.
Oh, well, there was one of the WrestleCons, which was about maybe like, I don't know, 2010, 2011, around there. We used to do this thing where me and my friends, right? I had about 2 or 3 good friends that we would go, and I've always been a booze guy like that. And actually not anymore. That's why I'm drinking my iced coffee. But back in the day, I was really a booze guy. But my friends, they like to take heavier drugs, right? And so we're in the restroom, and one of my buddies is like, "Oh, I can't wait to go back to the room and put the stuff up my nose. I don't want to mess YouTube up here." and then Ken Patera's taking the piss, and he's like, "That sounds like a good time. When do we go?" He was ready to go upstairs with us. And then my friend actually marked out because he recognized them, but he didn't want to share his stuff, so he didn't invite him up there.
No, yeah, it would have been. Because I have a Marty Jannetty story that's kind of like that, where, because they are celebrities, right? In some instances, bigger celebrities, in some instances, local celebrities. But Ken Patera, if you're a wrestling fan. My buddy Liam O'Rourke, who wrote the Brian Pillman book, he said that I think Marty Jannetty was at some sort of shindig that they were like, I don't know if it was like an autographs thing as well. But he said that there was a trivia contest, and the winner of the trivia contest got a bottle of Jack Daniels or something, and one of his buddies got it. And so then I think Jannetty came up to them and was like, "Hey, do you guys want to take a selfie?" And they're like, "Oh, okay, Marty Jannetty." So Marty Jannetty swings into the selfie. The guy who just won the Jack Daniels has the Jack Daniels. And Marty goes, "Hey, let me hold that for the picture." And he's like, "Okay." So Jannetty's got the Jack Daniels, takes the selfie, and Jannetty just bails with his Jack Daniels.
Man, that's sad, funny, everything in between, man.
But it's believable, right? It's completely believable.
Of course, it's Marty.
Everything
especially
that we know
with
about
him.
Marty. Yeah. All right, back to 84. Dave's writing a little bit about how he's really impressed that WWF is working with Cyndi Lauper because she's a real celebrity in 1984, right? This is her run, where she's most famous in her life is this little 4-year patch of time. And some of this time is working with Captain Lou Albano, of all people. That's the funny part to me is the Captain Lou connection that she made on the airplane. And her significant other is David Wolf, and he's a giant wrestling mark, and they'll eventually work with Vince on I think both wrestling albums. I think that they worked with Vince on. So just the idea, Dave's just I can't. This is kind of hard to think about. But
then again, okay, but let's be real. How in tune is Dave into pop culture at this time? Dave is pretty much he's been in a bubble for a very long time.
It's 84. So how old would David be? In his mid-20s?
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
He would have to know some of this stuff.
How old was he with the whole NWA fiasco? He wasn't that much older,
1989.
About 30 maybe. So no, I don't know if no, it was impressive. Don't get me wrong. I'm trying to think of a pop culture celebrity now that would be the same.
It would Bad Bunny is bigger worldwide than Cyndi Lauper, but he's not as big in the U.S. as Cyndi Lauper was.
Yeah. Again, we're talking about different times.
But it's also very impressive that they work with Bad Bunny today because he's just a giant international superstar.
Yeah, but now they kiss everybody's ass, which is kind of disgusting in a lot of ways.
Did you see the PWI 500 today?
I skimmed through it. Who number one was Seth?
I think it was Cody. I thought it was Cody.
Oh, Cody. It should be Cody, yeah.
So someone did a Photoshop of it, and they put number 38, Jelly Roll, and they said he's only in here for one reason only. It's just because he's a nice guy. But it was actually someone who like doctored the thing, and it kind of threw off a lot of people today. And I thought that was really funny because I was like, you know what? If I was making a list for Jelly Roll and wrestling, it would be the top 10 simp list because he is this
He's
dude.
a simp. Okay,
This dude talked himself out of winning on SummerSlam. He's like, nope,
that's
I
right.
want to lose.
A wrestler could do that. A celebrity wrestler shouldn't be doing that.
No, I don't think so. Okay. So also, let's actually let's stay on the WWF or WWF train at this point. So another kind of interesting thing is Vince. He's thinking much bigger than these local promoters because he wants Coca-Cola to be a national sponsor. Has Coca-Cola ever been a sponsor for WWE? I
No,
don't think so. But like
no.
that's him thinking big, man. Like he's like I don't know if he would have gone the beer route at that point, but Coca-Cola, like what bigger sponsor could they have had in 1984 than Coca-Cola?
Yeah, and they're very limited. They're so big that they limit who they sponsor. Because I mean, you hardly even see them in the Super Bowl either, right? I mean, they don't have to waste that kind of money, So it's different now. But even back in the day, they wouldn't really promote it during the Super Bowl either. So I don't know. He said he had to settle for Slim Jim for years and years and years.
Slim Jim. Okay, so Vince also, and this is one of those signings that they are, they're making this signing as a way to keep away some of the big stars who are bigger locally than they would ever be in WWF. 54-year-old Mad Dog Vachon.
Oh, I think we're going to talk about Mr.
him.
Wrestling too. That's another one that came over.
I think that's coming.
Okay.
But Mad Dog Vachon, like I'm trying to remember if I would have seen any footage of Mad Dog Vachon in WWF in this time.
I can't remember. Maybe in one of those Best of WWF Volume 1 where they would have all those darkened arena house show footage.
Yeah, something like that. And then Dave puts over, if you think that Dave doesn't put over WWE enough today, you need to read some of these old observers because this style of wrestling, he actively hates it because it's really slow and methodical and big guys, and there's no real athleticism. There's no expectation for it because they're working for this, big man territory, the Madison Square Garden fan base, and they're trying to take that style everywhere. So the match that he puts over, as he's like, by the way, you have to go out of your way. He's like, I would rarely say this, but you have to go out of your way. Iron Sheik, Sarge Slaughter, boot camp match. He puts that match over like it's the best thing since sliced bread.
That's a great match. I have it in a compilation somewhere on my DVD collection. That's a great match. A good match. I don't say great, but
yeah, I mean, good for what we see now. But we see a boot camp match on every AW pay-per-view.
Because Sergeant Slaughter was a great worker. Like he really was. He was like a unicorn amongst the land of like the giants and like
big man who could take incredible bumps.
Yeah, that turnbuckle bump that he used to always like to take. And he knew how to sell because he was a baby face at that time. All that, yeah, he was even when he came back when he was older during 91, he was also a good worker. That main event with Hogan and Slaughter at WrestleMania 7 is very underrated in my opinion.
I mean, can you at that time? It's probably on a top 10 list of best Hulk Hogan matches on pay-per-view at that point. Probably top 5.
On pay-per-view, yeah. Pay-per-view.
I mean, you'd have to go to house shows, or maybe you saw
No, if you go to Japan, there's about 5 there that Hogan was really good at. Japan, he was
that's a different Hogan. By the way, I had this conversation with Big Dave when Hogan died, and we were talking about the leg drop, and I was like, gosh, just dropping that leg so many times. He's such a big dude. That had to just be so painful as he got older. And we were talking about like what else could he have done? And he's like, he had the perfect finisher with the clothesline. Like that's all he had to do.
The Axe Bomber.
Yeah. And then he just decided that he needed a different move.
Yeah, the last time he rolled up with the Axe Bomber, and for the people that don't know, it was like he would do this. It wasn't a clothesline. It was like he would cross his finger and then he would run at you and just, hit you. He did it to Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9.
I remember that.
And I was like, oh shit, he just busted out the Axe Bomber. and I was like, I wonder because Yokozuna is supposed to be Japanese and he's in that's why he learned that from Japan.
I thought it was just because he was the skinny version of the Hulkster, so he needed to get some extra.
That's right. It was
juice on it.
The cruiserweight of the during that time. And so yeah, I remember that. As a side note, okay, so the reason he lost a lot of weight in '93 because he wanted to become an actor, right? So he had to drop a lot of weight. I love how
like
Jim,
Wayne.
Nah, I don't know. That's a whole other conversation. He looks sickly, but no. But what I like about Jim Ross during that time is that in analyzing the match between Yokozuna and Hogan, he said that Hogan dropped weight to have more speed, so he could tire out the big guy. I was like, oh, that's pretty good, Jim. I mean, he just knew how to go get around this.
It's Rocky III going up against Clubber Lang. He needed to have the speed and the endurance and
yeah, that's true.
All right, so the let's see what else. Oh, this is because you're the movie guy, of course. I was wondering if you knew or if you saw this movie. According to Dave, and I double checked, and at least two of these guys are actually in the credits for this movie. Andre, Big John Studd, and Jay Strongbow will appear in the Columbia Pictures flick Mickey and Maude, starring Dudley Moore. They will play cohorts of hard-boiled Haggerty, who has a genuine role in this movie. Have you seen Mickey?
I've never seen that movie. I've been stumped.
So I was like, okay, maybe they were supposed to be, and then they got their thing cut. And I didn't go any further than looking the movie up in Google and then clicking on the cast. John Studd and Andre are in this cast with hard-boiled Haggerty. Yeah,
Andre's getting a lot of movie roles during this time.
Yeah, and what was always the consensus that at least that we thought, as not necessarily this time in WWE, but as Vince would take control, is he doesn't let these guys do movies when they have opportunities as WWE gets bigger. But at this point, he probably thinks, oh, yeah, like if they see Andre in a movie, then that will translate to us and we'll get something from that, some benefit from that.
Yeah. Plus, Andre was the type of guy that he was going to do the movie. Like The Princess Bride, when that came around him in '85, he was going to do it whether Vince wanted to or not. That was a big role for Andre.
I mean, there is a percentage or a slice of pop culture who know him exclusively from that movie and not from pro wrestling. Like that's how big that movie was.
Yeah, no, that was a big. Even I remember as a little kid, I already knew Andre, but I knew how bigger he was because of that movie.
Yeah, for sure. And unfortunately, it's like, that he's winding down big time. You can just see he's. I mean, I don't think I would call him crippled at that point, but he'd have his run with Hogan. Then he'd have his run with Warrior, and soon thereafter, this man is walking with a cane. Like it's not that far off, and you can kind of see it a little bit in The Princess Bride, like how much he's physically like just kind of getting older as you're watching him.
Yeah, well, remember they had to put Robin Wright. They had to put her on the wires because he couldn't hold her anymore. So
that's crazy.
They had to put her on because he had all those scenes where he's holding her. And she said that story actually, and that's still 6-7 years before he passes away. So this guy was in a lot of pain for a long time.
And I think that movie is filmed in '86 at some point because I think it comes out in '87, right? But it's filmed in '86.
He might, when they injured his leg and then they shaved his head. That's probably why he went to go do that movie, and then he came back as a heel. In '87, when Bobby Heenan brought him back.
So there's this IWGP championship belt that Hulk Hogan currently has. And Antonio Inoki is facing him after winning whatever the version of the tournament was back then. And Hogan, he's got to face Hogan for the title. And Dave writes because I was kind of wondering, Hogan is the top star in wrestling at this point. And Vince McMahon will not want him to lose in Japan. But Dave seemed to blame it on Hogan himself more than Vince, because the way Inoki beats him is two double count out finishes. So they do the double count out, they restart the match, they do another double count out, and they restart the match, and then finally Hogan gets counted out and Riki Choshu interferes in the match in some way. But the Japanese fans were so furious because they saw right through it, and they were just like, this is a bunch of crap. Like, like you're selling us on this idea of this historic match, and then you give us this BS. And I was just like, wow, would Vince be the person to make that call, or would Hogan be the person to make that call?
I think it had to be Hogan, because Vince is not there. Vince is not around them. Inoki could have talked to Hogan. Inoki could manipulate Hogan into doing a better finish. So it had to be Hogan, and we know it was Hogan because Hogan had a reputation for that.
Yeah. But I just like you would think from a business perspective, Vince would want to protect Hogan, but Hogan also knows how to protect himself without Vince. I wonder if Hogan would have went to Vince and goes, "Hey, I'm going to lose this match to Inoki because I owe him, whatever." Vince would have probably said not to do it. I would have thought.
Well, I think what David's talking about is the way the finish went down, not so much the actual finish. So, in other words, Vince said you're not losing, but what Vince didn't say is going to be 2 count-out finishes. So I think that's what Dave is talking about. More so the way they booked that finish than Hogan not losing, because they could have done it. They could have saved Hogan not losing in a better way than what they came up with. But I think Hogan wanted it to like just tell everyone that he's just not going to do a job. And he didn't want to come back with any kind of idea that he lost to Inoki. So that's why they came up with that weird convoluted finish or finishes.
Yeah.
And that's what upset the Japanese audience, right? And so during this time, we're at the precipice of the UWF 5, which was completely changed the way they do business in Japan, because in '86, when they get introduced, though the first iteration anyway, then Japanese wrestling goes for like a decade plus without any DQ finishes at that point, just because the fans in Japan were tired of DQ finishes.
And then Dave kind of foreshadowed what would eventually become Saturday night's main event. So think about this time frame. We're August of '84. Saturday night main event is like April of '85. I think it's sometime after May, sometime after the first WrestleMania. So Dave writes, possible network TV deal. Ratings wise, a wrestling show would outdo most sports except for football if it was done well. But the PR hit to the station would be brutal because of how wrestling is portrayed. That was so kind of like looking into the future and understanding the landscape, and the way that NBC gets around the hit to the station is Dick Ebersol sees what Vince is seeing with kind of the superstar creation of these wrestlers, but B, you throw it on at 11:30 p.m. Pacific, and it's lesser in the prime. It's not in prime time, and you're putting on Saturday Night Live. When Saturday Night Live goes to reruns, then you throw the wrestling on there. So that lessens the PR hit that Dave was talking about. But NBC, this is right when we'd fast forward about 6 or 7 months, right when they do start up on NBC is when NBC is starting to go off because of the Cosby Show and Family Ties. They are building into being the number one network again. And so the wrestling is on this like crazy, insane network. But I thought that was just interesting. Dave kind of being able to be ahead of the curve on that information.
Yeah, and interesting that before that you would have to have go back all the way to like the late 50s when they were on the DuPont network to really show that. So wrestling had taken what 50 about a 30-some year break as far as being on national television without syndication, which was a big deal. You know, it's a big deal that you're having these quarterly Saturday night main events and they're on national television. At that time, it was definitely a coup for Vince. So he's rolling. He has so many W's at these times, so many W's. He's got some L's. Don't get me wrong. Some
we'll
of the
talk about one of the L's in a second.
yeah. That's a big L. That's what I'm thinking about. But also, a lot of the territories just wouldn't take his wrestling. So
Yeah.
he like Baltimore, St. Louis, Dallas. But he's got a lot of W's during this time, and I'm so impressed by the young Vince McMahon. It just amazes me because again, he's always 2-3 moves ahead of you. Always, no matter what, he's thinking about 2-3 moves ahead of people.
One of the L's, this is not the one that I was alluding to, but hasn't happened yet, which is we talked about the WTBS wrestling shows, and Dave wrote that, you know, Ted wants them in the studio, and Vince's excuse for them not being in the studio was that they, we've booked all of this stuff in advance. You know, we got these buildings booked, so we can't actually have them in the studio right now, but we'll be able to do to have them in the studio. And so that's how he kind of pushed it off for the contract thing, which I found, very Vince, right? That's the excuse that he would give. That's what he would do until he found whatever solution or whatever leverage that he thought he had so that he could do it his way and not Ted Turner's way. Okay, so let's talk about, actually, I wanted to say something that Awesome Sauce mentioned. Awesome Sauce said Ebersol and Vince were good friends, but he mentioned, Ebersol mentioned that he liked the fact that WWF brought in Mr. T and Cyndi Lauper because he liked the star power. So I read Ebersol's autobiography, which is really good. I mean, there's I wish it was a little bit more than just kind of a highlights of all the events that he was producing and stuff, because there's a lot of Olympics.
That tends to be the case with a lot of these autobiographies.
Yeah, and he did write about Saturday night's main event. Now I'm going to ask you, and if anybody knows in the chat can also give a guess, but which wrestler do you think would call Ebersol on Sunday morning asking him about the overnights?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer. Was it because he was the producer of Saturday Night's Main Event for at least till 90?
Probably from like 85 to 89 or something.
Okay. Which wrestler would call him to? Would it have been Randy Savage?
Randy Savage, the Macho Man. There you go.
I literally just try to think of different personalities than what I know, and I got it on the first try, so that's pretty good.
By the way, did you see the news?
He would do that. Did you see the
news that Kenan Thompson is producing a Macho Man Randy Savage biopic?
Yeah, but I feel like it's gonna be one of those like Ready to Rumble kind of like let's make fun of the marks, because it's a comedy. He's a comedian.
So I guess their connection goes back to the late 90s when Kenan was like still a young dude, and I don't know, they crossed paths on Nickelodeon or something like that. Like, I don't know, that's what they said.
You need somebody that really understands wrestling.
But how do you cast for Macho Man Randy Savage? Because if you cast for Savage, you're gonna have to cast for Vince, you're gonna have to cast for Elizabeth, you're gonna have to cast for Hogan. Maybe the rest of them you can fudge them if you want. This doesn't have to be the Dewey Johnson television show where you cast every cartoon character in the world.
And most of them were cast poorly, by the way, on that show. But but the thing, so if you focus on the relationship with Liz, right, which I think for dramatic purposes that's going to be a big part of this, you don't really have to worry about Vince or Hogan, because the Queen of the Ring, they didn't care who there was like a nobody as Vince and a nobody as Vince Senior, and
but that was more like a wink just to like kind of be a joke, because Vince wasn't even he wasn't even around at that time. Like the Vince Jr. wasn't around at that time. Didn't even know his dad yet, and he's in the movie somehow.
You know what I would do to get around this? Because there's a lot of pressure. I would do the old Muppet Babies gimmick where you never saw the adults' faces, and you just so we were just here, Vince, but we never see them. That's how I would get around it.
Awesome Sauce says jacked Don Cheadle as Virgil. I think he's a little short.
Okay.
He's a little short for Virgil, but that's because Virgil was jacked, man. Like he wasn't as big as some of these guys, but Soul Train Jones and the Virgil. I mean, even till he passed away, he was still pretty.
Yeah,
pretty
but look at these guys, man. These Hollywood guys, they know how to get jacked. They just call Dewey, bro. They call Dewey, and they get the what did Hugh Jackman say? The old chicken breast recipe, and we're good. You know.
Well, that's what the thing that I just crack up about is, and we see this in sports, and we started to see it in Hollywood, which is the player. I'll just bring up Dante Bichette because he's the one that I remember the most. But when Dante Bichette goes to the Colorado Rockies, I remember Dante Bichette from the Brewers when he's a young player, and he's a tall guy, you know, like a big athletic guy. And then he comes into Colorado, and his forearms look like he's like going for Mr. Universe or something. And I was like, what the hell? And then you hear these guys like, oh yeah, you know, hired a trainer. I said, I want to put on 20 pounds of muscle. I mean, it doesn't really work like that. Like just to put on 20 pounds of only muscle, like it doesn't work like that. But that was always the wink to me where I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get what you're saying. Like, but this is how you have to say it to the public. And then you would hear the same thing from these actors. Like you would see certain guys go from role to role and their bodies like look so different. Yep, got with a personal trainer, 6-week diet, nothing but protein and 3 workouts a day, 7 protein shakes a day. And I'm like, okay, like I get what you had to work out hard, but there's also something else here that you're not telling us that you did. But that's but
I also feel like they also get brainwashed themselves by their team. Like it's like remember like that scene where Ivan Drago gets shot up with the steroids. Like it's just part of his training regimen. Like he's not really thinking, oh, there's the steroids. It's more like, okay, because remember, there's a lot of pride in changing your body, right? These guys are actually saying the truth. They're working out at 3 a.m, the whole Mark Wahlberg thing, right? So that takes over when they're explaining it. That's what takes over because that's what they remember. That little needle shot is like it's just part of it. We don't talk about that stuff.
The irony of Rocky IV. The irony of Rocky IV is Drago was the bad guy for taking all those steroids when in real life Sylvester Stallone was taking enough steroids to probably for the entire Olympic weightlifting team by himself.
He's got some good genetics, man, because he's almost 80 and he still around.
Looks pretty good. Yeah.
But he's got those big growth hormone hands. It's just but yeah, and so getting back to Dewey, like he did that interview where he essentially told people I had to lose weight or I could die. Like he could die, so I think he came to the realization, I don't know when, why, or how, but he came to the realization that at 53, if he's putting stuff into his body that he shouldn't, he's got to stop, and it seemed like it came up like as an epiphany, right? Because like from one day to the next, he's just like 60 pounds leaner. And I know now he's saying that he did it for a movie role, but some of those earlier
Chicken Man.
Yeah. but I mean, now it's like he also did it for health reasons. And I'm glad because he should be careful. I mean, seeing Brock Lesnar the way he came, that guy, he looks unhuman. Like, and I hope he's going to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, the way that we'll talk about that match, but it was like 2 or 3 minutes in and he was like beet red purple. And he's an athlete too.
But a lot of these guys, especially with Brock, they have that whole conservative mentality, I would say, where it's like they could in their brain, brain power could beat anything, and they're gonna eat an entire cow if they have to because they're men, And I feel like
Overeem, horse meat, man.
Yeah, and and that's the philosophy that these guys have, and they don't understand that especially if you're doing other things. And at 48 years old, I'm going to assume there's other things going on. Um, you shouldn't look like that at that age because your heart just can't take that stuff.
I mean, Arnold had heart problems. Arnold still looks pretty big, but I can't imagine he's taken all the steroids that he once was.
No, he's had
an
three heart
older man, too.
surgeries. Three heart surgeries. Yeah.
So now that we're on Dewey Johnson here, what do you think of the pairing? It seems like he's linked himself up with Safdie here and this the Smashing Machine. So my son went to one of the IMAX. They did a sneak preview last night on IMAX.
Yeah, that was last night, right? I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either, but I'll see it when it comes out opening day. But he said that he thought it was good, but he thinks that I would probably like it more. And I said, well, I don't know if I'll like it more because I actually know the Mark Kerr story. Like there's a documentary about this. And sometimes when I know too much, I kind of get disappointed. But he said the best scenes in the movie, or at least what he thought was the best parts of the movie, was Dwayne and Emily Blunt, their characters. And they're kind of like really like codependent characters with each other. So I'm interested at least seeing, you know, The Rock open up a little bit in his acting chops and, you know, being really vulnerable. And the thing that is so funny to me is he's going on this press tour, and the press tour is all about how he was kind of forced into this corner of these roles to play because of who they thought he was or his size or whatever. And I'm like, brother, your whole idea was to be the 2010 version of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like that's what you wanted. Like that was you creating this business plan to become the biggest action star going. Like that wasn't, you know, people. I mean, I'm sure he got put in a corner, but he actively was trying to go there. So I'm finding his current PR push a little interesting.
No, and it's very disingenuous because the reality, and the insiders would tell you this, because the insiders in the film industry have already looked at these interviews, and I'm sure you know this. The reality is that his role as the big action star was coming to an end. You know, the last, Black Adam was a monumental flop. It came out how much he was trying to take over DC, which
he tried to wrestling politic Warner Brothers in this whole scenario, and they said no. Like you're out of here, buddy.
Right, which was kind of like the first ripple where you started to see, okay, this is how Dwayne is now. I mean, we heard all those stories coming out of the Fast and the Furious franchise, how he was there with Vin Diesel and whatnot. But that one was kind of more difficult because they both come off as heelish in those stories. But to me, the real story is that Hollywood was just about done with him in his current role that made him a lot of money. So he pivoted, which is good for him. I give him all the credit in the world. Yeah. He's pivoting towards more of a dramatic actor. And if it works, that's amazing. If it doesn't, well, but everybody goes through that. Arnold went through that. Later in his career, when he came back from being the governor of California, Sly Stallone did it in the mid-90s, like with Copland and movies like that, you know. Everybody, like that action star role has a very limited shelf life. And if you don't adapt, you become like the Steven Seagal, like the Jean-Claude Van Damme. You just go straight to video or whatever. And if you do adapt, then you have a nice little career like Arnold and Sly. It just depends where you want to end up in this. And I firmly believe that Dwayne was done. The action thing is done. He had a couple of very disappointing films out back to back. I'm sure he talked to his management team, and it's like, it's time to try something new.
So do you think he comes back to wrestling? Because based on what you think about those interviews, he's not going to come back in a WWE ring as Skinny Dwayne.
No, he's not. And also, nobody has said this, and I don't know what Dave thinks about this, but I do think there's some heat with him in WWE right now. Even though he's in the board of directors, and even though he's getting big money, I think there's a lot of heat. I think that Cena babyface promo that he cut out of nowhere, I think it buried The Rock. Because I mean, Cena said, like, I trusted people, they turned their back on me, they never showed up, and all. So essentially he was telling us, just forget what you saw the last few months, and now we're gonna start over. And that's what happened. So I believe right now they're not talking about Dwayne over at whatever they call Titan Towers now, that new building with the big old Andre.
Something's gonna happen though. And it's not anytime soon because they're still running on fire. But something's going to happen where maybe they're going to need some help. And I do think that they'll bring him back, but I just don't know
And
he's
if they
going to be
do, I'm
comfortable
sure Rock would go on that Hollywood diet we just talked about, and he would just for one match,
just
he'll
for
get
the one
jacked.
match.
Yeah, he'll get jacked. So, you know,
Yeah, because I don't think that he'll let himself, like, you saw how the internet reacted when he was smaller. Like, it's like people thought that he had cancer or something. Like, that was the reaction, and it's all he did was just stop going on steroids or whatever it was.
yeah,
Like,
and also I think when people at his age, when they lose weight like that, they also look older. So his face looks older than it was when he had all that muscle.
well, you think about you think about someone who's very large and they drop a lot of weight in a short amount of time. They have all that extra skin. Like, he's got the giant head of a bodybuilder, and he dropped all that weight, and he still has the giant head of a bodybuilder, and his limbs are you can see like arms and stuff that aren't just enlarged by muscles. Like, it's a
It
weird.
reminds
It
me
kind
of
of looks
Barry
like that.
Bonds about a year after he retired. Just put it that way.
Barry Bonds. He went cycling. He became an outdoorsman without all that muscle. He wanted to show everybody he was still an athlete. All right, so let's go back to what was also, at least at this point, a Vince failure. The trip to Memphis saw Vince and company leave with their tail in between their legs, as Jerry Jarrett's June 5th show drew a sellout of 11,300 to McMahon's June 24th show, drawing only 1,200. According to Dave, I've heard ticket sales in Nashville and Louisville, where Titan had shows set on June 25th and June 26th, were a little better than Memphis, but undoubtedly McMahon's refusal to deviate from his family promotion style is going to make Memphis a very tough market for him. And historically, it was always a tough market for WWE.
There's only one King of Memphis, man, and they didn't have him yet.
Dude,
So
Jerry Lawler had another stroke, man.
I know,
Just a couple days, like a week ago or whatever.
I think it's the third one or something like that.
Yeah,
but he's tough, man. He keeps on coming back. He's tough. You know what it is? I have a theory on that. He never had any vices. That guy never had any vices. I mean, he
probably had a pretty bad diet. But that was probably it.
Well, I mean,
women, yeah,
and women. Well, it's just a vice. I mean, it gets you in trouble.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's relatively healthy compared to some of these other guys, and so he just keeps on kicking out of these strokes and all that stuff. And good for him, man, because he's definitely a legend. He's one that I'm gonna feel when he passes away, because he's one of my heroes, and I really, really enjoy watching his stuff. Because I've said it before, Memphis style was my first style of pro wrestling. It's just so absurd and cartoony that I could watch that stuff all day long.
So part of that show, that Jerry Jarrett show, was a pretty famous match. And I think this was on one of those Wrestling Gold tapes that Dave did commentary for. Rock and Roll Express versus Lanny Poffo and Savage. And this is the pile driver through the table spot. You remember that? Do you remember Savage? I don't remember who he put through the table.
You're bringing up I have the Wrestling Gold DVDs, by the way.
Okay. Is that Dave and Cornette?
His old best friend, Jim Cornette. Yeah. They're not friends anymore, but they used to be.
Any Weasel Dooley references in that video?
I don't know. I haven't seen them since 2001, since I bought them.
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be a good watch along, is to watch some of that stuff again. I don't think I've ever seen it, but I would see those commercials for sure. I remember those Wrestling Gold commercials. I don't even remember if I related that Dave. I knew Cornette, but I don't know if I related Dave as being Dave when I saw those commercials way back in the day.
I should get both of them to sign it, huh?
Yeah, you could totally get. I mean,
well, Corny comes along with these conventions.
I would get Jim to sign it first. What would be my advice?
Well, they could sign different sleeves. Like, they don't have to see. I don't, you know. But yeah, that would be a cool little thing. Yeah, because I have them here. I haven't seen them in 20-some years though.
All right, so Adrian Adonis. This is the funniest story, because this is wild to me, but. Adrian Adonis told the Tokyo newspapers that he would fight Larry Holmes in the fall in Las Vegas. And Dave writes, either Adrian was putting them on or his wires aren't connecting. I know Adrian is as tough as they come, but he's not in the type of condition to have a fight with the level of a guy like that. all his good bumps notwithstanding. I've never heard that rumor. Adrian Adonis and Larry
No, that was
Holmes.
probably just him talking to the Tokyo media because he knew that wasn't really going to get around. I
Yeah,
mean,
totally.
and that was before. I mean, he was starting to get out of shape, but he wasn't there yet. So he was still looking decent during this time, somewhat.
He wasn't the adorable Adrian of
He wasn't
87
adorable
yet.
Adrian just yet.
So Dave writes about a newcomer, Nikita Koloff,
Uh-oh.
billed as Ivan's nephew who was to compete in the Olympics, but since the Russians boycotted, he's coming here on his own. So that's storyline. At this point, without seeing Nikita, Dave thinks it's Barry Darso from Mid-South. That's his assumption. So he thinks it's Crusher Khrushchev just getting a new name for the Crockett stuff. And he said, I expect 6 months from now, he'll be one of the most improved wrestlers around. I don't know if he was quite that improved. He
was better. He was better than when he became Smash, because he wouldn't do nothing at Smash, just punch and kick.
But I'm talking about Nikita. How long did it take for Nikita to become passable at wrestling?
No, never.
Well,
he was kind of like Goldberg. Like he's always protected, and he never really evolved.
I remember. So Nikita's another one of those where, depending on what pocket of wrestling you come in, you see these guys or you hear about these guys, and you go, "Oh man, I wish I could have seen them." And so Nikita in 87, when he and Dusty become the superpowers, I get to see a little bit of that stuff, but not a lot of it. And then he goes away. And so then when he comes back in 91 to face Luger and Sting, then I'm excited because I'm like, oh, okay, like, I missed this. But that guy was a lot smaller than the guy from 1987.
Yeah, he was in the Dewey diet by that point. Yeah, what happened in 88 is that his wife got ill, and so he had to leave to be with her. And then he did I don't know if you remember this, but he did a quick stint with the AWA, just to put a couple bucks. Yeah, in late 88 into 89, and then he came back, like you said, in 92, and then Sid Vicious gave him a nasty power bomb and messed up his back. He went to the old LOL, Lloyd's of London, and that was it for his career.
There you go. Just a couple of more notes, and then we'll talk about these shows from last weekend. This is a funny note. So we're talking summer of 1984. Hulk's brother, Eddie Boulder, appeared June 16th on the Hollywood, Florida show. As most of you know, Hulk is actually from the Tampa area, losing to Mil Mascaras. So Dave thinks that they're shoot brothers at this point.
I thought they were shoot brothers for a long time.
Yeah,
because I as soon as I was introduced to Brutus Beefcake, somebody told me, I think it was my neighbor, is like, "Oh, did you know that's Hogan's real brother?" And I was like 8 years old at the time, and it wouldn't be there was no way for me to disprove that. Like,
and they're like the best friends. So
yeah, they were always like best friends. So I was like, okay, they're brothers. It wasn't until like years later, they're not really brothers, but yeah, I believed it for a long time. So.
All right, I only have one Comedy Dave segment here, and I still have not gotten the proper sound drop. So we just got the 1 second Comedy Dave sound drop here. So Dave writes, and I'll set this one up. So you know this, and I know this, and I'm sure most of the people listening, because they're pretty smart about this stuff. But Gorilla Monsoon had written a column. I don't even remember the time frame, but he wrote a column that superstar Billy Graham had passed away, and it was actually not true. And Gorilla never recanted that statement.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a lot of people who knew who superstar Billy Graham was in the wrestling world and just had assumed that he died. So I needed to preface that statement so that everyone understood Dave's comedy here. But Dave is writing about Billy Graham's Kung Fu version of his superstar Billy Graham character. And he writes, Billy Graham is hilarious coming to the song Kung Fu Fighting. Even though Graham wrestles like those rumors several years ago were true, he is kind of funny at the mic when the bout isn't going on. So he basically said he's wrestling like if he died.
Yeah.
That might have been a little bit more mean Dave than Comedy Dave, but I chuckled when I read that.
I think he was always hard on Superstar because that was one of his favorite wrestlers. when he
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
on, you know.
All right, let's spend the next 20 minutes talking about these two shows from last weekend. It was the, I don't know, I found it to be like a really important wrestling day. I
Me
know a
too.
lot of AEW fans were trying to no sell the idea that WWE is trying to, interfere in their shows and stuff. And they're like, oh, we're not worried about them. But the fact that wrestling kind of dominated some of the talk of kind of programming, and ESPN got this new app, and so they were part of that discussion. And I was like, I'll say this, I liked the AEW show, or at least there were a lot of things that I liked. There were a lot when you have an AEW show where there's like so many matches, you're going to find lots to like, lots to dislike, and some of the things that you would have liked if you just didn't see a match that did all of the same spots and as this other, like that's kind of my relationship with AEW. I will say that there was good stuff, and mostly good stuff, but I don't think it was a home run show in any way. I had it as like a B or a B plus. I think I told you after I watched it.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I feel the same way. I mean, it was fun. I watched it, but nothing stays with you. Nothing stays. I always go back to movies. There's this big thing right now with AMC, right, where the film industry wants to get them to stop playing 30 minutes worth of trailers, because the studios are like, if you give them 30 minutes of trailers, they're not going to retain any of the trailers.
yeah,
You have to give them 15, 10 minutes tops so that they could retain the movies that we're previewing. And it's the same thing with AEW. It's like you get all these, you're getting 13, 14 matches per show, and it's like you're just numb. You're just numb at the end of the show. You can't really, and then especially now where they're doing all these like blood and all that stuff, it makes it even more like numbing.
yeah.
So I enjoyed it. It was a show, but talk about the WWE show, because that was the real disappointment of the night.
Yeah, I was, I'm a sports media guy, and I've been a sports media guy since I was a little kid. Like, I really, really cared about the TV ratings for the Super Bowl and the World Series, and I would compare and contrast and go, oh, why is basketball lower than football, and those kind of things, as a little kid. And so I was really excited to see ESPN using the WWE show as a vehicle for their new over-the-top unlimited network. And the reason, if people don't know, the reason why WWE is valuable content for ESPN is because ESPN has lots of different sports. Right now, they have college football and the NFL. That is dominating ESPN. So if you are a college football and an NFL fan, you are locked in, you're subscribed, you're watching your ESPN from August until February. But when the Super Bowl's over, or even earlier than that, when the NFL playoffs are done, you're like, okay, what do I need ESPN for? Do I need it for the basketball? Some people will stick around for the basketball, some people will not. They're not really in bed with the MLB anymore, so they're not going to really be there with baseball. And so how do they keep people subscribed year round? One of those ways was the UFC. The UFC had a monthly pay-per-view, so you kind of wanted to keep your ESPN Plus subscription if you were a UFC fan. They don't have UFC anymore. UFC is going to be on Paramount. How about plan B? How about we have these WWE shows and we only show them on the unlimited streaming network? So thus, you either have to have a cable company that gives their subscribers the app, like mine, because I got Hulu, or the fans have to buy it for $30 a month. Now, you don't only get the WWE stuff, but and I know there are some pro wrestling fans who only watch wrestling and they don't watch any real sports. So they might be exclusively buying it for this thing. So I was thinking like, okay, this is great because now WWE is going to help them keep their subscribers from churning out after seasonal sports. And I watched that first show and I'm like, we're going to get whatever the Netflix Raw version is of the ESPN show, we're going to get that because they want to knock this thing. They want to hit a home run. They want to hit a grand slam with this show. And Triple H and company said, no, like, you guys are getting a Peacock show. Like, that's just what this is going to be. Some people like those Peacock shows. I don't like the B shows necessarily all
I
that
don't
much
like them either.
I'm a fan of like stuff happening and news coming out of the show that I want to follow up on Raw. And this show had nothing of that nature. And it was just a standby wrestling show. And if you liked the build of AJ and CM Punk and Seth and Becky, you may have been entertained. I found AJ Lee's offense like downright disgusting for the most part, and I was really disappointed in that match. But I will admit that's what got me to the dance, right? Like I would have watched anyways, but I was so excited for that build. Cody and Drew, good match. If they wrestled 10 times, this is probably in the bottom 5 of the matches that they'll ever have. John Cena and Brock Lesnar. I kind of jokingly referred to it as an old timers game. I'll take that back a little bit, but you had so much goodwill built in this John Cena character from the turn, and I think they took it for granted, or we'll see if they took it for granted. It's possible he'll still be over like crazy, but I was like, man, we needed to see John make a giant comeback. Even if he's going to lose, he needs to get a big 2 count on Brock. Like Brock's going to lose. John's Raw promo building to this match was so amazing, and I think it was actually longer than this match was.
Yeah, this match was really short. Like you said, everything, there was just a big night of disappointment. I was expecting more pop in circumstance. I was expecting some surprises. Just because this show needed to stand out. It couldn't have been like the other, and they just didn't deliver. I don't know if I blame AJ Lee for her offense, because let's keep in mind she's coming from another era, first of all, and also she hasn't worked in 10 years. So I mean, I don't know. I'm maybe I'm being too soft on her, but I wasn't really tripping on that. I just
didn't like the slaps. Like the slaps come from a Divas era of wrestling style, and we're so far beyond that with how good women's wrestling is. It just looked like she didn't fit.
But I also think because there's no house shows, this is her first match back.
Yeah.
So it's like she teleported herself from a time machine from like 2014 to 2025, and that's what I was expecting. I was expecting that kind of wrestling from her. I just thought it was very lethargic, which the intensity of the feud wasn't matched by the actual match itself. You know, it was slow. But then again, I think the big pink elephant in the room has always been that Punk is not the wrestler. His wrestling style doesn't match his charisma and his. It never has. To be honest with you, so CM Punk's matches, if you go into them expecting them to deliver on the hype, because he's such a great promo guy, he knows how to hype a match. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be let down because his working ability has never been able to match his hype. And now that he's older, it's going to be even less.
Yeah.
I felt like Seth had to like slow down for all of them. He had to actually work slower than he likes to. So that was and it went 30 minutes. It's like, why you? I mean, I get it. They drew the gate, but still. But there's a lot of little problems in WWE right now that could become big problems. I think they're just taking a lot of things for granted, you know, and a lot of the way they do their business is becoming more and more transparent. And we keep on saying people are going to wake up. Me and you have been saying it for a year, but then business wise, nothing ever changes. It's still the same thing.
Well, because they got the fans just slurping it all up still. And so they are, you know, their business model is to get the fans to keep buying more. And what we were waiting for was the fans to kind of go, okay, we're good. And you saw those WrestleMania prices. And if that doesn't take the fan base to say, okay, we're good, then nothing will.
But now I'm wondering, where are these people coming from? Like who could afford stuff like that? Like, and regular, I know we got the green shirt guy who I guess buys all that stuff. But I mean, other than like, you have all these people that are just, they're just so loyal to this company. Doesn't matter how they get treated, you know. And now it's becoming that whole, because we're seeing this in everything in economics in this country with the whole capitalistic thing of like you're getting less for more, right? You're getting less. I know that a lot of like the liberals were saying we're tired of like they're putting, you know, in the grocery markets they're putting less product and you're paying more money. Well, same thing with wrestling is like we're getting 5 matches per show and we're paying these outrageous ticket prices where we should be guaranteed to see every star, you know, that's under that roof, but we're not. It just doesn't work that way there. And yet people are just taking it. They're just cool with it. Okay. So that's why
you know, want to know what really pissed me off about that show?
The Stephanie thing.
I didn't like the
Stephanie thing. Really upset me.
The Stephanie thing was, it was like the least of my concerns, really. Like I hate when I see the Undertaker on TV, but that's just me personally.
But you've always, since he first came on, you were saying he was overexposed after like the first shoot interview we ever did. I'm like, dude, he's never broken character. Now I'm on your side. He needs to go away now.
So let's say you were one. I don't imagine you paid the $30 for that app. I know you. I don't think you would have paid the $30. I didn't pay for it either, but it's because I get mine with my subscription. There are people who paid $30 to watch that show, and there were commercials in that show.
Yeah. Oh God.
Can you imagine paying money so that you can see commercials throughout the show when it literally should have been the best pay-per-view product that WWE could put on? You're getting double dip. Now, I'm going to guess that was ESPN's side of the conversation, unless the reason they had to have commercials is because WWE has international deals. Maybe there's the Netflix product that they put in, whatever it is. There should be no commercials on ESPN because of what you paid to watch that show. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is I watched the first match while I was watching AEW. I just wanted to see how it happened. Then I backed out and I went back into the app to rewatch the first match. The show wasn't quite over yet. I think it was probably late in the show. There was a 30-minute ad that I could not fast forward through after
30 minutes.
I'm sorry, 30 seconds.
Oh,
that I couldn't fast forward through. If I could fast forward through it, no biggie. But I couldn't fast forward through it. I had to sit through this 30-second ad before I could even get to the actual show again, which that stuff is preposterous because you're just double dipping on your customers.
Much. Yeah, no, that would have pissed me off a lot.
So here's a question, which is, we just talked about AEW is overstuffing in a sense for their shows, and WWE is not giving people enough. Like, where is that product that is giving you the right amount of matches and the right amount of angles and the right amount of, you know, pomp and circumstance, like you're saying? Like, there's it seems like we have one side and then the other side and nothing in the middle right now.
Well, no, I like a nice little balance thing is when they give us the WrestleManias and the SummerSlams that have about 6 or 7 matches. I think that's perfect. You know, I actually think that this year's SummerSlam was very good. Like when we really think about like the both nights, it really kind of made up for how bad WrestleMania was.
Yeah.
Because I mean, let's be real about it. This year's WrestleMania is going to be looked back as probably one of the all-time worst. You know, it's going to be there with 9 and 2 and all the ones that everybody always talks about. And this one's there now. So I like that WrestleMania SummerSlam. Give me 7 matches per night kind of thing, maybe 8. Because you also want characters to be over. I don't want to see Shinsuke Nakamura out there eating 10 minutes with I know this guy's one of your Bay Area guys with the JC Mateos of the world. You know, we don't want to see that. We don't want to see that either. Like I want to see guys that are over. And
I haven't seen Jeff Cobb on WWE in a little while. I guess because Solo's been off TV, so that's probably why.
They've all been off. And I don't know what happened to Jacob Fatu. He just vanished.
Yeah, he's another one and some people thought that he was going to show up on Wrestlepalooza, which is the other thing. Because one of the great things about this relationship with ESPN is now you have these WWE wrestlers on the talking head shows on ESPN. They're able to talk about their shows, Wrestlepalooza and now Crown Jewel. They're able to talk about this on ESPN, which is just about the best publicity you could possibly get today. And so Triple H says, we're going to have it all. We're going to have surprises. We're going to have X, Y, and Z. And at the end of this show, unless you consider Paul Heyman joining Brock Lesnar with no explanation, and unless you consider Stephanie going into the Hall of Fame and maybe LA Knight being the special guest referee, what were the actual surprises on that show? Nothing. So he's just carnival barking up everyone's ass and not delivering.
Which is a promoter's job, but still, it's still something that should try to be avoided because we're trying to be better, But then again, TK does have an announcement this Wednesday. So
this is the opportunity. This would have been a great opportunity for TK's surprises to hit because he did have some. I was not a fan of the Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus getting back together because they're basically saying, let's erase the last 3 years of Jack Perry and let's just go back to when he was a babyface.
That's exactly what I thought, is that you're literally going backwards. You're admitting that his singles run didn't work, is what you're admitting. And now the kid is 3 years older. Remember when he first came up, it was like, finally, we're going to get that 21, 22-year-old kid that the business needs because we don't have a lot of those guys. And he just got old, and now his possible prime has passed him by. Just like that. I mean, he's got Luke Perry money, but still, yeah. I'm sure he's a prideful guy who wanted to be over in wrestling.
Yeah, and so the other I guess surprise is Hook coming out to save Eddie Kingston, and they're going to be a tag team. Which it would have worked the other way around if Hook was getting his ass kicked and Eddie Kingston came out to and he wasn't promoted. That would have been a great surprise. But that was another one that didn't work. And then you have Toni Storm, who's the most over woman in all of wrestling, and you have a flash pin and a good submission move, but a surprise victory by the one person who's been on AEW television the most, and that they're selling that as like an anything can happen. I was like, well, how about you build the person up and then they get the win? How about that happens better? Because then you could still do the surprise, but it won't feel like it came out of nowhere or that, is Toni hurt? Why did she lose? Like when the question is, why did she lose, more than the excitement of somebody winning? I don't think that was good either. So those three surprises to me, where Toni could have like really done something excellent to kind of take the news cycle away from them. He didn't do those things either. His way of winning this cycle is, Hangman Page winning a match that went 38 minutes or whatever, or Mascara Dorada, who had a great match, but they're not even going to talk about it on Wednesday probably.
No, and they need to, the follow up on Kyle Fletcher needs to be there. I'm already I'll be very disappointed if they don't do anything, because
he should open up the TV show probably.
Right. I mean, he needs to be up there with the upper echelon now. Watch him disappear for 3 months after like, which wouldn't, that happens with these guys. They just, Tony Khan does that all the time. I know Uncle Dave gets mad because he's like, well, WWE doesn't do it like that. WWE doesn't come off a star-making performance and then you just vanished. There's a lot of examples of TK doing that time and time again. And then the thing with Chris Statlander and Toni Storm, the logical thing would be to follow up on a singles match with them. Watch them never even touch anymore. They're both going to go on different directions. And it's like, well, isn't Toni Storm going to get a rematch? I mean, she was champ for almost a year. Maybe, I think it was, almost a year. No, because she won it in March, right? From, what's her name? April, May, June, July.
From Mariah May.
Yeah, she won. I was there. She won it in March at Revolution. But still, it was a long time. So to me, it's like, especially now that you have all these pay-per-views, matchups, Chris Statlander with Toni Storm, have him do the one-on-one thing, and then take it from there. But no, they're gonna go in two different directions. I could already see it, because I don't know. Tony Khan doesn't know how to build feuds. He doesn't know how to like pay off stuff, and that's why I worry about Kyle Fletcher, because that's why I keep on saying this is like a developmental ground for him to headline WrestleMania. This was literally a showcase for Triple H to be on his private jet and be like, "Hey, throw on the what does the competition have? Nick, turn it to the competition. I want to see. I heard about this kid they keep on that guy in the dirt sheets. What's his name? Meltzer. He keeps on putting up this kid. I want to see him. He's gonna see him. Oh my god."
Yeah.
When his contract is over, talk to his people. We're gonna bring him over and make him a star. That's what's gonna happen, dude. I mean, geez. But I hope I'm wrong and TK has a plan for him, because he really, I'm very impressed with Kyle Fletcher. I think he really has the potential to be a big star in this business. But Tony Khan doesn't know how to make superstars. He just doesn't.
All right, I have a comment from J Boba 28. Get your take on this. Crazy how WWE fans are finally seeing how bad the product is, even though it's been bad since post WrestleMania 40. Even Santi Zap, I don't know who that is, who's a notoriously a WWE glazer, gave it a negative review.
Even ESPN gave it a C-.
Well, do you know that story? Do you know who that is?
No, who's that?
So, Andreas Hale, he is their MMA.
I feel like that's somebody who was about to be fired, to be honest with you.
This dude is a fantastic dude. I wouldn't say that we're friends, but he's somebody that, I will kind of chit chat with or whatever. But he invited me. So WrestleMania, this last WrestleMania in Vegas, when I was there, he invited me to a little gathering. And it was mostly, I would say, people of color who do content in pro wrestling. That was kind of the angle. And I was talking to him because, he's been working for ESPN now, and he had recently, I'd noticed that he was kind of straddling between boxing and MMA and stuff. And so we just had a conversation. He was like, yeah, there's not a lot of us. So sometimes we got to cover these, crossover. One of their boxing writers, Mike Coppinger, he bailed. So now there was more stuff for the combat sports guys to follow. So now you add the wrestling stuff. And I was and so, Dave's on this thing about, where's their AEW content? I'm like, Dave, they're just writing for clicks. Like the wrestling blogs get all the AEW clicks. Like this is ESPN. And so he writes a couple of things kind of building up to this show. I think it was like a Seth Rollins thing, and it is kind of written in kayfabe. And I'm like, Andreas is really good. Like he probably has to do this for strategic reasons or whatever. But then he writes the review of the show, and a friend passed it. Someone who's usually in this chat, Lady B, she showed it, and I was like, oh, I wonder what he thought of the AEW show. I wonder if he's even going to watch it. So then she sent me another text that showed his review of the Kyle Fletcher match. And I was like, oh, okay, he did watch it. He loved that match, by the way. And I was like, see, the problem is he probably can't then go on ESPN and write his same review of the AEW product, because that's not what ESPN bought. That is the problem, not the fact that ESPN doesn't necessarily cover AEW that much, because that is all about clicks and how many people are reading their stuff. AEW is still so much smaller. Like Dave did the Google Trends, and like WWE's Wrestlepalooza still dominated the Google Trends. So I just wish that he could have also given his review of AEW, but there's no way. Like, can you imagine ESPN going like, why are you writing about the, we bought this, we didn't buy that. So that's the kind of the faulty.
But when you say it like that's the saddest thing about the world we live in, right? There, where you just said, like, ESPN is supposed to be like this neutral and partial. It's supposed to cover sports, right? I mean, even if there was a slant on the coverage, at least give us coverage.
Yeah.
Because it'll open up the gates for us to go to explore ourselves, right? Even if you have this AEW bias because you bought into WWE, at least fans could look into it. What does it say AEW? Let me look into it. But they're afraid of even that, so they're just not going to write anything about it. And like you were saying, that reporter friend of yours could have compare and contrast.
Yeah,
like
it would have been a great column.
Yeah, it would have been a good article.
It would have been what we just talked about right now for the last 30 minutes. It would have been a written version of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I was going to say to J Bubba 28, it's like we've been saying, yes, there is a vocal minority that's starting to build, but into it's reflected in business, they're not going to care, and business is still hot. Like, I want people to stop buying tickets. I want people to stop buying the ESPN app. That's when they're going to start listening to you. Because they also have masters to serve themselves. So once they start getting that pressure from on top, that's when they're going to start making changes. There's no reason to make changes right now. Literally zero reasons to make changes right now. And I know it's been theorized that Cena is their gravy train, but that's not true because he's not on all the shows.
He wasn't even the biggest draw for their show this weekend.
Right. So
They pulled AJ Lee out of their ass and built up maybe the best.
They always find people like that though, man. I mean, it's just amazing to me. Like
she was fantastic. Becky was fantastic. That whole build to this match, even though I didn't like the match itself, that whole thing was just that was business. That was how WWE showing everybody how to do business just in these two segments that they did with those four people on screen. It was fantastic work. And that's where you do have to, if we're going to discredit a lot of the stuff, you do have to credit that because that was brilliant. Like that's something AEW can't do. That's something that even though you have an Edge and Christian who are the pros of pros, they would rather do goofy stuff in the locker room with Wendell Carter.
Well, I didn't even know who that was.
Wendell Carter's basketball player. Wendell Clark, the hockey player, and the bug-eyed guy from that other show. Like they would rather do stuff like that because that's what entertains them. While we have some other stuff that's really big on the other show. That's really I think the kind of the compare and contrast problem is WWE. Even if you didn't like this show, they still did it in so much of a bigger way than the AEW show did their show.
Yeah, I'll put them over for the hype. The hype delivered. They had three big, even the Usos reuniting for the first time in forever. That was a big deal. So the card itself was stacked. For only 5 matches, I thought it was pretty stacked. It's just the presentation left a lot to be desired. It was just another random show, And I know Fernando Salas is saying that Steph versus Io Sky saved it. I don't think it's hard for there to be any bad PLEs nowadays because everyone's so polished and everybody's so good. So I wouldn't say it was one of the worst PLEs of the year, but it just didn't deliver in my
from how hyped they made it to what they actually showed. It was the most under-delivered show, though WrestleMania was kind of under-delivered.
Yeah, I think that's one of the worst of the year. Yeah. WrestleMania. Especially night 1, I didn't really care for the undercard. Night 2 was the main event, but yeah. So I don't know. I was disappointed. Now they have this show from Perth, which hopefully the crowd's going to be hot. We know that. And then it's official. It's going to be AJ versus John Cena, which is going to be essentially there's no build up to it. They just literally just signed it, which is fine because we all remember they had a classic feud back in 2016, 2017. I will ask you this now. This is the multi-million-dollar question that a lot of people are wondering. Who's John Cena's last opponent?
Yeah, we've been trying to figure that one out. I thought it was maybe going to be Brock, but they said specifically it's not going to be Brock now. I thought maybe Roman because that's the one that they've stayed away from so far is possibly Roman. I had previously when I thought about this about a month and a half ago, I thought, okay, who does WWE trust and who do they want to be their biggest star at this point? And I thought it was going to be Seth. Like I thought John Cena versus Seth was going to be the retirement match. Because they've wrestled, but they haven't really had that tremendous feud. So I thought that could be interesting. But if they wanted to do business, it could be someone like Braun Breaker, but I don't think that they would go that route. Like, I think they would go to their tried and true formula of like big star versus big star. So I will say Seth, but at the same time say I really have no idea.
I'm going to say Roman.
Okay. So yeah, we're thinking kind of in the same way.
But him and Roman just wrestled though, like what, 2 years ago when he had that first comeback before this comeback. So that was he was one of Roman's bloodline victims,
I think they want us to forget that previous comeback because they didn't really take it that seriously.
And that was at a SummerSlam too. That match that was at a SummerSlam, so it was a big show. But I'm gonna go with Roman. I think that would be a good conclusion. You know what really needs to happen, because it just sucks that Edge is not under, because Edge was a great opponent for Cena.
Oh yeah,
and,
you
and,
could
and
tell they kind of wish that they were both going to have this.
all right, here I got
match.
one. I got a fantasy booking for you. What about if Paul calls Tony, and he's like, "Let us have Edge for one night, and we give you Cody for a night." That would be fair, right? Like,
that would be incredible.
but then TK's gonna be like, okay, but you gotta say that Edge is a AEW superstar, and then he's gonna go clink.
But you know who would say no? Cody wouldn't do it.
That's true.
Cody's got too much frustration for whatever reason that he won't tell us. He's got too much frustration, I think.
Yeah, whenever maybe I'm sure it'll come out one day, years from now.
He says he's writing a book.
Well, yeah, but if it's not gonna be good if that story's not in there.
Well, that's what I'm saying is if he's writing a book, that story has to be in there, or else it's a worthless book.
And it's a handshake agreement, right? It's not an NDA or nothing like that. It's just a handshake agreement.
I mean, that's what they've been saying. So.
Yeah.
All right, I got one last one for you.
Okay.
Which is what do you think the Tony Khan announcement is for Dynamite? Yeah, for the audio folks, this is going to be old news, but anyways, we'll just do it.
I think it's going to be probably the women's tag team title tournament. I think
that was my first guess too. But here's what I wanted it to be, because I've been fantasy booking this for a couple months now. I want him to do the Shad Khan Cup, like the Crockett Cup, because they have so many damn tag teams right now. And they could also grab tag teams from New Japan. They could grab tag teams from CMLL. Yeah. And they themselves have so many tag teams that they could do an amazing Crockett Cup style show that I think would be off the hook. But, they don't really invest in tag team wrestling that much, it seems like that.
Which is weird because they got FTR, who's like big, they have all those teams. But then the only thing about that is that they can't put the Hurt Business in that tournament because they're gonna want to do any jobs.
Yeah, so, they'd be the one double DQ for the entire year would be whomever they and the Hurt
the Hurt Business.
Yeah, the Hurt Business.
Oh, the Hurt Syndicate.
Hurt Syndicate. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't want to do. Poor MVP had to do the job in this one.
Yeah, and then he goes out there and he's talking shit about Triple H again. No one asked him. Just he doesn't. They don't have to ask him.
He doesn't like the guy at all.
This is funny. Women's Hardcore Championship. They don't even really need to do a Hardcore Championship. All their matches are hardcore matches, anyways.
But I could see it in that company. I could see it. I could see the women's hardcore. And then that one guy that had the bug eyes with the glasses, like the edge during the edge.
Yeah.
Did he have a WWF 24/7 belt? I think he did, and they got away with it. I could have sworn. No,
is that what that was? That green belt?
I feel like it would have made bigger news if it was. Nobody ever talked about it, but
yeah, because I saw the belt and I didn't think that that's what it was.
Because they had another sticker on it, but it looked like the same shape. But anyways, it probably just me being a mark and stuff. I don't know. But yeah, so yeah, no, I think there's gonna be the women's. Because remember, with Tony Khan, one of his patterns is that he always overhypes these tournaments. I cannot remember the last time that one of his announcements lived up to the hype. They just never do. So it's
be like, some of the announcements are like related to, like, remember he did the first, no, it was the second Wembley show. Like it was one of his special announcements, and it was like, I don't know, like 8 months before the show or something like that.
That's right.
The other one was the announcement of Collision as a TV show. I remember. But okay, so if he's gonna do this, I hope he does it this way, because this is my favorite way.
Today's been one of the greatest days in the history of AEW.
He's got to start his announcement by saying, "Love it. I love it."
That's that smile that doesn't come off. He just when he turns, he's just always smiling. He almost blew the spot when he was trying to hug Martha Hart in the last pay-per-view, because somehow she was right next to him and he lost her. Somehow that's typical Tony Khan. That's why we love him so much. But yeah, so we'll see what happens there.
All right, man.
That's pretty much it.
That was fun. I had a blast, like always, and I'm catching up a little bit because of Dave's new, as we said in the beginning, Dave's writing style is now every 3 weeks instead of every month. I will, when we come back next time, we'll probably be in the early fall, but we'll catch up by the end of the year. The sad thing is, though, is I'm going to guess, because of how late Dave gets the issues out, I'm going to guess we won't have. Okay, we may have. I think the Starrcade review will probably be in the end of December instead of, because that was always like right around Thanksgiving time, right? Starrcade 84.
No, it was. It was on Thanksgiving.
On Thanksgiving. So yeah, okay, we will get it. For some reason, I was thinking the WCW versions of Starrcade, which were in December.
Is this the Joe Frazier year? I think it is, right?
Yeah, I think this is Dusty and Rick with Joe and Tully and Magnum in the cage, right? Or is that 85?
No, it's 84.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. That is it from here. I want to thank everybody for popping in, including those who came in a little bit after, like Fernando, who's always hanging out with us, and Darren, and of course, thanks to Jay Bobo for your super chat, and the other folks who gave us Andre's gaming and awesome sauce as well. All right, for Draven, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.